Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Rooted in Scripture, a year in the Bible. I'm so excited to dive into the Word with you guys as I show you and share the highlights that I've gathered from the books that I've read, from the Bible plan that comes from YouVersion, Wandered by the Word, the Bible in a year. Now, if you've been reading along with me in this plan, you'll know that we've passed through Genesis, the very first book in the Bible. And you'll know that the book of Genesis is packed with foundational truths, powerful stories, and lessons that are still so relevant today. I'd like for us to jump into the highlights of Genesis. Genesis opens with the beautiful story of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is so important because it reminds us that everything starts with God. Creation wasn't random, it was intentional and was created with a purpose. God created the earth with a plan, and that includes both you and I. In Genesis 3, we hit the fall of man. Adam and Eve have disobeyed God and sin enters the world. This is where everything changes. We see that sin has consequences. But what's so powerful here is that even in the midst of judgment, God shows His mercy. He promises a way of redemption. Genesis 3:15 says, God will send someone to crush the serpent's head. This is the very first glimpse of Jesus' redemptive work. Even when humanity fell, God's plan for redemption was already in motion. That's a beautiful thing if you ask me. Let's fast forward to Noah in chapter 6. The world was a mess, but Noah found favor with God because he was obedient. Genesis 6 verse 9 says Noah walked with God. This is a reminder that obedience today shapes the blessings we experience tomorrow. It's so easy to look at our current circumstances and think nothing's happening. But Noah obeyed God even when he didn't see the full picture. This resulted in him saving his family because of that obedience. And not only did it save his family, he saved a whole lot of animals. Now, here's a big one. Abraham's test of faith. In Genesis 22, God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. Now that's a really big test, especially considering that Isaac's parents, Abraham and Sarah, were 99 and 90 years old respectively. Abraham trusted God, even when it didn't make sense. Genesis 22 verse 2 shows us that faith means trusting God's plan, God's timing, and His word, even when you don't understand it. And we see how God provided a ram instead of Isaac for the sacrifice, showing us that He is Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. And then we get to Joseph's story in Genesis 50 verse 20. Talk about a journey. I mean, Joseph's brother sold him into slavery, but through his trials, God was setting him up for something greater. What looked like a setback was actually a setup for Joseph. Joseph's rise to power in Egypt wasn't just a random story. It was all part of God's plan to save many lives during a famine. This shows us that even when things feel a little off track, God is always working behind the scenes. So what can we take away from these stories in Genesis? Well, we learn that our lives have purpose, our identity comes from God, and that sin has consequences, but God's mercy is greater. We also learn about trusting God's timing, obeying God even when we don't see the result, and understanding that trials aren't meant to destroy us, but meant to refine our faith. One final highlight from Genesis is that God never forgets His promises. If He said He will do it, He will most definitely do it, no matter how impossible it looks. Look at Abraham and Sarah. In their old age, God promised them a son, and the son is what He gave them. This is something we can hold on to as we continue our journey through the Bible. Keep trusting, keep growing, and keep rooting yourself in the Word. Thank you for joining me in the first episode of Rooted in Scripture, a year in the Bible. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down your favorite highlights from Genesis. I'll see you in the next episode as we dive into the book of Job. Peace out.